This is Bedside, a podcast series on a mission to debunk sex. I'm your host, Tatiana, and each week we uncover stories, ideas, and expert information to help guide you on your ever-evolving journey of deep love, relationships, and good sex. Oh, and a little bit of manifestation sprinkled in there too. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Bedside Podcast. And if I'm catching you on YouTube, hey, so nice to see you from the couch in my living room. I just wanted to say happy Wednesday, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am so thrilled about this Manifestation Masterclass series. I have gotten such great feedback from you guys about this, and I'm just so excited to be delivering 2 more episodes that talk more about this entire process. And just to back up a bit, we are talking about really debunking Manifestation 101. I find that so much of the rhetoric around manifesting can feel a little wish-washy. It can feel a little complicated and complex and like something that feels just out of reach. And what I'm so excited to deliver with this series is just a 3-part method on really how I have found manifesting to work for me. I constantly found myself prior to developing this method, finding myself throwing spaghetti at the wall and just not having it stick and feeling as though I just was catching myself in this perpetual loop of just not feeling enough, just not reaching my goals like I wanted to, just not being able to achieve and follow my desires like I really knew I could. And so this entire process of this Manifestation Masterclass is really getting to the core of what manifestation is and how it works. And the coolest part is that I actually created a monthly manifestation journal that actually goes with this entire process, though that's not fully what this series is about. I want with this series to very much get to the heart and core of manifestation and really share with you what I have found works and the tools that I really believe get you to what you are calling in, get you to your desires. So part 1 of this series was where we were talking about visualization. So if you haven't listened to that episode or watched that episode yet, I highly recommend starting there. It's very much where I set the scene for manifestation, really why I came up with this method, how I came up with this method, and what drew me to creating an entire process around this that I have been using for well over a year, that over 700 of you have downloaded on a free Notion template that we offered, that really brought me to this very place. And I'm so thrilled to deliver this to you. So today we were talking about part 2 of the manifestation process, which is all about alignment. But before we get into that, I just want to say a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart of how well this monthly manifestation journal has gone in its launch. I mean, we've barely been launched a week, and just the outpouring support and love and orders and sharing that you guys have done has been so incredible. Like, I am speechless about it. I have been having so much fun packing up the orders here at the house. I actually have to be so careful because I have my own journal floating around, and I feel like I've literally had the thought the other day. I was like, I need to put a sticker on the front of mine so I don't accidentally pack up my journal and send it to one of you guys, because I was like, though that would be so funny. But I'm loving this process so much. It has just been so incredible. So thank you truly from the bottom of my heart. If you are curious to go even just like explore the Notion template, explore the manifestation journal, you can head over to thebedside.co. That's where everything lives. That's where, you can get into the meat and potatoes of what this journal entails, what the Notion template entails. You can just explore a little bit more. You can have a lot of fun over there. So thank you, truly. This has been so epic. It's been a manifestation of my own. I've used this literal manifesting process to create the manifestation journal, which has been awesome. And it's allowed me to launch my first consumer packaged good, which is crazy. I have been working so hard behind the scenes. Anybody who's been a longtime listener, I've been working so hard behind the scenes on so many very specific products. And it's something that's taken a lot of time. And I'm getting very close to some of these other projects that have been in the works for a while, but this is something that I was so excited because I was able to really like create this and deliver this so soon to you. And that has been such a treat. And I am just like really like this is just the beginning. So thank you, thank you. I am so excited for you to manifest the fuck out of your life because that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm sitting here in this seat having done the same thing. I've manifested the love of my life. I've manifested my home. I've manifested the furniture in here. I have manifested my job, my career, my friendships. All of these things have taken such beautiful intentionality. The jewelry that I'm wearing, I've manifested all of this. And so I want to really, really break down this entire process for you, share it with you, and give you the tools to feel empowered to follow the desires in your life. And this is so interconnected to all of the things that we talk about on this podcast in terms of intimacy, in terms of sex, in terms of pleasure, in terms of relationships, because this is really all about desire. It's all about captivating and feeling worthy of your desire. So when you listen to part 1 of the visualization masterclass, we're really talking about how to dream big. We're really talking about what it looks like to step into those shoes, to own your walk, to walk that talk, and to think just as big and beautiful as possible without boundaries. So today we're talking all about alignment. Once we've done the visualization process, once we've thought and dreamed big, once we've journaled about it, once we've voice memoed ourselves about it, once we've maybe even vision boarded about it, like what does it look like to actually align to those manifestations? So then you can get to part 3, which is all about attracting your manifestations. So when it comes to alignment, I really want us to take this buzzing energy that we've done in step 1 of visualization, and now we're here to refine. So where step 1 felt like dream big, go crazy, no boundaries. For me, a big part of my visualization process is on Pinterest, like I had mentioned in that episode. So I'm just like pinning like crazy, reposting like crazy, and not thinking too hard about it. That is kind of where we're allowing ourselves to be in the free flow of our visualizations, in the free flow of the creativity without bounds. And now is the time where we get to refining what we just did in part 1 a little bit. We get to refine and align. This is where we really are bringing in 2 components, and we're merging 2 components. And I want you to stick with me. So component 1 is our higher self. And component 2 is archetypal embodiment. We're going to get into all of this in a second, but I just want you to remember this, that we are now merging 2 concepts that we've actually been working on unknowingly in step 1 of the visualization, but we're merging both of these concepts and refining to align for part 2. And this is so important because it allows us to walk our talk, like I said. It allows us to actually take all of the things that are free floating and feeling kind of almost larger than life and distill them down into something that feels really tangible, that feels like something we can act on. Because so much of where maybe you have hit yourself against a wall or found yourself up against any sort of roadblock might be right after that step 1 of visualization, where a lot of manifestation rhetoric, a lot of vision boarding and mood boarding rhetoric stops there. They're like, think as big as possible, make the world crazy big and go for it. And you're like, yes, but also no, what's going on? And so like that is kind of where I think it's so important to take now that big thinking, those big-minded ideas, those big-minded versions of yourself, and actually make action items out of them and make them feel like it's something possible that you can achieve. Because yeah, I can put on my vision board that I want to be a, I don't know, multi-billionaire founder, CEO, da-da-da-da-da. But what's that like when you're still working your 9 to 5 and living paycheck to paycheck, right? And so it's like, great, yes, have that huge vision, but it can sometimes feel like the impossible task at hand. And that's really what I wanted with this process to get ourselves over the fence on, being like, okay, we can have these big goals. How do we reverse engineer them now into actual manifestations that allow us to eventually create that version of self that in 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now, you get to look back on and say, oh my God, I knew it all along. That person was there. That version of self was always there. And I worked and I got there. How cool. And I want everyone here to be like sitting in that seat. And that's really where that idea of the part one of higher self comes in. So that higher self is that unwavering knowing within each of us that is so worthy, so confident, so determined, and just feels so deeply that you are sitting in the seat of your highest timeline, that you are capable of doing anything you set your mind to, being anyone that you set your mind to, and knows with certainty that you are destined for what you are destined for. That is such a powerful feeling to tap into. And for some of us, that might feel like a little bit of a distant glimmer. For others of us who might be a little bit more seasoned in the practice of connecting to our higher selves, this might feel like something that you have easy access to. Wherever you're at is totally fine. And I think it takes time to really generate a knowing with your higher self. And that is really about following your intuition, which we talked about in episode 1, right? That unwavering knowing of who you are is something that we practice. We build the muscle of acquainting ourselves with. And that is really just dialogue with self. Like if we want to get to the heart of it, it's taking time to quiet down in the noise to have dialogue with yourself. And that looks like so many different modalities. For me, that looks like taking time to meditate in the mornings. I do it every morning now. It's just something that I'm so acquainted to. I think I've mentioned on the podcast before, but that I use this free meditation podcast, if you will. It's on Spotify, I believe also Apple or wherever you get your podcasts, but the creator is called Purely Being. This isn't sponsored, but I just love, love, love her content. It's so magical. And, you know, the meditations are anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes, whatever you might pick. And I do that every single morning. And that is me spending time with myself. I also journal. You can voice memo yourself. Just go on a walk with yourself, right? Like whatever it is that you can do to just connect more with who you are. Ask yourself how you are doing, right? And quiet that noise and tap more and more into that intuition and that inner knowing system. So this connection to higher self is something that you have the ability to practice playing with and really, really getting to meet. And just so you know, really like that energetic difference between connecting with your higher self and not connecting with your higher self, you know when you're tapped in, when there's kind of this unwavering clarity, but also it's uncomplicated. It's kind of a deep knowing, and it isn't rushed. It isn't anxious. It isn't, you need to be doing this. You should be doing this. Da, 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 da. Like that chatter is not your higher self. Your higher self is layers deeper than that. I almost think of like that chatter being surface level. Whenever I'm struggling to get into a meditation, I know this is kind of a wild visual, but I almost imagine myself unzipping. Like if there's a lot of chatter going down, I'm like, unzip that first layer of self, and I like almost step out of that and enter that deeper layer, you know? A lot of like hypnosis style meditation does this, where they're like, you're going deeper and deeper into the earth. Like you're leaving that surface level clutter, you're getting into the stillness. And there are so many different modalities for doing this, but you know that you are connected to your higher self energy when you are not in the clutter of it, when you are not in the shoulds of it, when you are not anxiously driven in a rushed go, go, go way. It feels almost still, centered, restful, easeful, deep knowing. And I want to just like share this tidbit of information because it has helped me so much in my own journey, where there are many times that I have been following a manifestation that my higher self has such a deep knowing of. But when I am not connected to that energy, let's say I'm having a frantic day, it's normal, it's human, it happens to all of us. And then I'll think of that manifestation. That's when like that doubt creeps in. That's when I'll be like, oh, fuck it to all of it, right? Whatever it might be, I'll know and I'll have the awareness to be like, okay, Today, it's a little bit harder for me to tap into my higher self, or clearly my higher self is not in the driver's seat today. That's okay. We are not going to be making decisions out of this state. I think I heard this from Lori Harder like years ago from the Earn Your Happy podcast. She was like, never make important decisions out of a lower vibrational state. Don't do it. Allow yourself to be in that low vibrational state. Feel your feelings. Let it be. Sometimes you just need to say, tomorrow's another day. Truly, we've all been there, right? So I just want to like humanize that experience. It's okay. I'm not expecting us to ever always be like these floating fairies who are like, we are always in our higher self states. That's just like not the human experience. And it's always about awareness and recalibration back to that place of being, that place of knowing, that place of uncertainty. And that is kind of what a lot of these rituals around journaling and meditating all do. And that's honestly, guys, why I've been able to stick to it. And through this monthly manifestation journal, you'll find yourself sticking to this process because you're like, oh, this actually has intentionality. I find for myself, I'll speak for myself, that when my habits and my rituals don't align to anything in my life, they don't tether themselves to a value, they don't tether themselves to my monthly archetype or to who I'm stepping into or what I'm calling in, when they don't tether themselves to anything and they just float in kind of a world of, well, I should be journaling because everyone says I should be, or I should be meditating. I know I should be, but when it's like just a should, a practice will never stick. But the reason why I've been able to stick to these certain practices is because they tether themselves back to this entire manifestation process. And it truly allowed me to create a life beyond my wildest dreams. So when I look at these rituals, I'm like craving, I'm so excited to jump into them. I'm so excited to align to my manifestations because I'm like, oh my gosh, look at what has come from all of this. And because I've been able to dedicate the time to doing this, this has allowed me to be the version of myself that I've always wanted to be. This has allowed me to call in the things that I've always wanted to call in and see to believe and make it all freaking happen. So that is really such a cool piece of it. So we've talked about our higher self and really this idea of the knowingness that we all have within us. And you'll know it too by really kind of those things that keep you up late at night, those things that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't stop thinking about this. I feel so much desire and determination around this. Like those things that keep you up late at night, you got to trust that. That is someone knocking at your door. That is the universe knocking at your door saying, listen to me. I am pointing you in a certain direction. Please follow me, or at least just try. Because either I'm going to show you something that blows your mind, or I'm going to show you something that taught you something new, even if you're not going to end up going in that direction, right? Like Gabby Bernstein always says, taking the detour in the right direction, right? Like you're never being steered wrong, but the more we listen to that inner knowing and that intuition, we practice who that is. We get to step into who that is, and that becomes like our self-worth shield. That becomes that impenetrable version of self that you're like, I'm not going to listen to that outside messaging. I'm not going to listen to whatever bullshit someone just said to me because they thought they could say that to me, right? Like you're going to be like, I'm untouchable in this sense. And so I want all of us to practice this. I want all of us to cultivate this. And this is really kind of that part one of the alignment merger. The part two is archetypal embodiment. So part one, higher self. She, he, they live within us. They're always with us. What's cool is this idea that I've really crafted around this entire manifestation process, which is attaching an archetype to your higher self. Now, stick with me for a second. Archetypes, when we look at archetypes in history, I look to a lot of storytelling. I look to a lot of ancient figures that have been a part of all cultures' storytelling, whether that is the healer archetype, the warrior archetype, the nurturer archetype, right? Like I love to even think of Greek gods and goddesses. They all carry an archetypal meaning. The god of war, the goddess of love, Aphrodite, and all of these different characters that embody an energetic. And we are all capable of embodying an energetic. And that is what is a really cool part of manifestation. How in the last episode, we talked about how when we dream big, our dreams are at a certain frequency. They're hanging out on our highest timeline. What do we need to do to meet that frequency and meet that highest timeline? We need to match that energetically. And we do so by connecting to an archetype, by asking ourselves, who are we stepping into to call in what we're calling in? Because whatever we're doing right now isn't working. We're living at a different level. We're wanting to call in maybe that love, maybe that new career move, maybe that home that finally feels like home. And what are we doing? What do we need to do? And maybe, honestly, what are we currently not doing that we need to audit a little bit to step into that version of self? This is where it becomes the monthly process. This is where we say to ourselves, let's play. Let's tap into the energetic of play and to the idea that, hey, we're not finite beings that need to define ourselves once. We actually can always be constantly redefining ourselves. And that's what the most successful people in the world are constantly doing. They're constantly redefining themselves. They're constantly moving forward. And I know there's a lot of chatter in the world about finding your niche and sticking to it and just figure yourself out once and stick to that personal brand. But hell no, that's not what life is about. It's about the evolution. It's about the growth. And so what this entire process of monthly archetypal embodiment does is it allows you to step into the version of self that you want to experiment with and see, can this match my frequency? What am I calling in? Okay, that big dream, I'm feeling like this month requires a lot of heads down hard work. Okay, who does that archetype need to be? Who is that version of self that I need to meet to be that? Or, you might be in a season where you're like, okay, I actually have a lot of planning to do, or I have a lot of self introspection that I want to do. So actually, that archetype is a lot more compassionate this month, maybe in more of a nurturing, resting position. Maybe we're not so worried about being energetic and determined, and maybe we're more concerned with stepping into the version of ourselves that is resting, that is recharging because we're feeling burnt out, or we're at our wits' end, burning the candle at both ends, whatever it might be, right? And that is really where you get to follow your intuition in all of this. So your higher self is going to be guiding you to very much this archetypal embodiment. They're going to be the ones saying, you know what? I'm needing you to chill out for a bit. That happens to me a lot. My inner knowing system will be like, okay, love all these plans and ideas that you have. Let's slow down a bit. Let's chill out a little bit. Let's actually figure out what's most important here and actually maybe what might be frivolous or extra fluff that's so not needed at this moment. And so when you work with these two concepts of archetypal embodiment and of meeting and connecting with your higher self, this is when you come into the alignment practice. You're walking your talk and you're matching your frequency. Now, you might be saying, okay, I'm tracking. This makes a ton of sense, but what does it actually mean to come up with a monthly archetype? Tell me a little bit more about that. No worries, I got you. So, with what we talked about in part 1 of visualization, we really thought big, we dreamt big, we felt big. And in the actual monthly manifestation journal, there is a lot of prompted space for you in the visualization section to go deep. And what I want you to pull out from your journals, from your vision boards, is start pinpointing themes. Whether that's, I'll speak to visuals, whether that's certain colors, whether you're getting a certain energy from what you're seeing, whether you were journaling and you kept saying the same word over and over again, or you really were able to dissect down a feeling that you were really wanting to encapsulate for this month because of how excited you are to step into this version of self, right? I want you to take what you've put on the paper and what you've put onto these boards and pull out and extract out what stands out to you. It might be helpful if you don't have the journal to just grab out a piece of paper and just jot down words, right? Energized, vibrant, colorful, cup-filled, nourished, restored. things come easy to me, easeful, resting, work hard, play hard, consuming over creating, right? Like just jot down words. Even if you're like, it's the month of June right now. So you could just write down a bunch of words that are exciting you about the summer, like longer nights, more daylight, feeling free, time spent with family and friends, vacation, sunshine, right? Like, what are these things that are just really, really speaking to you? Jot them all down. And then what I love to do is I love to just like circle the top couple words that stand out to me. And from there, I end up crafting an archetype. I end up seeing like, oh my gosh, there are a couple words that are really standing out to me. I am stepping into I'll give you just some examples of archetype names that I've used in the past, like an energized ritualist, someone who is very much into all of their rituals. They're excited to get back into things. They're excited to create routines that work for them, and they're cultivating their energy. They're doing practices, they're doing rituals that feel like they're fueling their energy, that they're filling their cup. Other archetypes can just be like just being free spirited. They don't have to be multiple words. Another one that's really stood out for me in my own journaling practice, even for this month, has been a lot around the word clarity. Just keeping things really crystal clear, keeping the clarity, keeping the bird's eye view perspective, not getting lost in the sauce or the distraction of things, right? So I think this is really where you get to practice with your own inner knowing system. And what's so cool is that in the actual journal, there is an entire spot for crafting your archetype, naming your archetype, taking a moment to describe who your archetype is and really all their characteristics and manifestations that they're calling in. And then also listing out any mantras or like quotes or phrases to live by. I find this so helpful because I really love, once I've created a archetype, a version of myself that I want to step into, I love describing her. I love being like, okay, who is she? How is she showing up? What is she wearing? How is she dressing? How is she socializing? What are her values? What are the things that she is really, really focusing on this month? And, some months I'm like, I'm just cozy in my sweats and I'm hanging out on my couch and just really resting and da-da-da. Other times I'm like, I am a social butterfly ovulation queen, all the things. And so it's really great to come up and also distill from your description just some phrases and words to live by. And sometimes I'll even just jot those down in my notes app. I'll like write those at the top of my to-do list for the day. And I really am just someone who's constantly reminding myself who is my archetype. And in the journal, there's practices for that every single day. But that is something that's so key to this entire process, is constantly reminding yourself who your higher self is and who your archetype is and how can you step into them every single day? And what does that look like? And it might look different every day. It does look different every day. But what are the components and pieces that you can be that version of self in your daily practice? So this idea of distilling down all of those big things you've thought of into a month are so helpful because, as I even mentioned on the previous episode as well, an idea that sometimes feels so big doesn't have anything to back into. And this process is actually what does it. It allows you to say, okay, you know what? I see that I want this one thing. I see that I'm working toward a journal launch, for example. Okay, so what am I doing this month to get that started? Okay, I think I need to create an outline. All right, that's my one focus for this month. Create an outline, create a rough draft, right? And so it's just about breaking down these steps and seeing, who do I need to be this month to achieve what I'm after? And how can I align to that? And the thing is, I want you to have so much fun with this process. It is not serious at all. I want you to play in this process. I want you to feel the immense energy of it all. I want you to be like, this is it. This is the word. This is what I am aligning to. And, I've used very tangible examples, but I was even talking to a friend lately who was just like, I don't know, I think my word for this month is just like dewy, hot, whatever it was. And I was like, yes, this is so it, right? And she's like, I don't have a full vision board, but I found this one image that represents it all for me. And I was like, great. This is perfect. This is who you are embodying. And you get to step into this version of self every single day. And once you can really define who that version of self is, that's when we get into the attraction part, which is going to be next week's episode all about attracting your desires. But this is really the integral part of being able to create the roadmap to them, because when all of our desires feel just out of reach or are just thrown haphazardly on paper, we're not really allowing ourselves the ability to really get into the energetic of it, get into the value prop of it, get into the why of it. And that's really what's going to have you follow through on something. So many times, there have been ideas that I've had, archetypes that I've had that are working or manifesting one specific thing or really focused on something. And I'll realize, you know what, this one specific thing might not be working for me. That's okay. Let's reorient ourselves. And it's also not a rush to get this all done on the first day of the month. I usually give myself the first couple days, I would say like max, like the first week of the month to really get into who my monthly archetype is and just play in that and like let it kind of simmer and cook. I'll spend an evening vision boarding and then I'll really sit with it. And then the next day I'll kind of get into more of my alignment process and really kind of distilling down the word of who my monthly archetype is and getting into the description of who she is and what her values are and what she's really, really prioritizing and focusing on. And then I'll get into that third step of the attraction phase. So this isn't a rushed process because that would go completely against all of really what we've talked about today, which is when you are in your intuition and your inner knowing system and working with your higher self, it's unrushed. It's so certain. And I want us to feel just so playful about it all and like there aren't any rules, because there aren't rules and it's not that serious. Nothing is that serious. So have fun with this. Really, really allow yourself to explore, to experiment. And then you have the next month to realign and do that whole thing all over again. And we have a monthly reflection section in each of the journals where you get to actually assess how your month went, see what worked, see what didn't work, see what gave you energy, what drained you of your energy, what you want to leave in last month, what you want to maybe continue bringing into the following month. So it's a real entire reflection process. And I feel like this journal is just such a tool to get you in the habit of working with your inner knowing system and working with your intuition and constantly being in that beautiful, beautiful dialogue with yourself and the universe. So, anyways, that was today's part 2 of our manifestation masterclass, where we talked all about alignment, that merger of higher self with our archetypal embodiment. It is a playful, fun process. I am so excited for you to just experiment with this for yourself. So, thank you so much for tuning in. Next week is the final series of the masterclass. We'll be talking about attracting. We'll be getting into the actual manifestations. I'll be sharing some of my own manifestation stories. That's what's so exciting, is really this fun pattern that once you get into the habit of doing this process, you'll find yourself in, where you will be working on a timeline of having like big manifestations you're after and then also small ones. And I love kind of the concept of mini manifestations. We'll chat more about those next week, that keep you excited and going because they happen so quickly and they manifest and come together so quickly that you're like, oh my gosh, this process works. This works. This works. This has to be working. I know it's working for my larger goals as well. So it's a really fun process to get super, super adventurous in and allow yourself just to be that free spirited soul that we all are. So thank you for tuning into this week's episode. I am so thrilled to be breaking down this entire process for you and to really be showing you that manifesting is not that serious. And it's something that works in the realm of having tangible to-dos, setting goals, having beautiful dreams to aspire after, but also being more in that, allowing yourself to enter more of that feminine energetic of letting things unfold how they should unfold, having a gentle hand in the entire process of it all, but also not constricting everything so tightly that it feels impossible, like the impossible task at hand. And that is what really this entire process breaks down, that achieving our goals, following our desires doesn't need to be the impossible task at hand. It can be simple, and it can be fun, and it can be really enjoyable along the way. So I'm so excited. Thank you for tuning in this week. And in the meantime, if you head over to thebedside.co, you can find the monthly manifestation journals. Thank you to everyone who's already purchased one. It's been epic to just be doing this alongside you. And I'll share this more next week's episode, but we're working on a couple series to help with our daily pages that are within this journal, that help with journal prompts, that help you to drop into your own journaling process. So with that said, thank you so much for tuning in this week. I want to mention that next week's episode is going to be the last episode before our summer break. Bedside is going to be introducing a couple summer breaks and just probably the winter break in between the holidays, and just kind of like leaning more into having a little bit of pause within our episodes, just so I'm making sure I'm delivering you guys the best content. And I have to say that in the past couple of weeks, I have been just hoarding interviews, which are going to be coming out mid to late summer. So stay tuned for that. I am really excited. I've just been having the most wild conversations. I manifested the probably biggest guest that I've been trying to get on the show for about 3 years now. So that is so major, and I'm really, really excited. So next week's sadly our last episode, but we will be back so soon and with a bang. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next week. Thank you for listening to the Bedside Podcast. I hope you loved this episode as much as we did making it. If you have any feedback, questions, or suggestions for future episodes, or if you just want to chat, don't hesitate to reach out to us at The Bedside on Instagram and thebedside.co online. You can also find us at By the Bedside on TikTok. To stay updated on our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your preferred platform. And if you found this episode valuable, I would so greatly appreciate if you could leave us a rating, a review, text it to a friend, share it to your Instagram stories. Let's get this message out there loud and clear. Until next time, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.